Alrighty, guys, so this is going to be the bourbon apple relish, which is going to be a garnish for our panna cotta. All right, so we're going to just get our pan going with about a tablespoon and a half of blended oil. All right, and we're going to take our apples that are going to be small diced. All right, and we're going to start to sweat these guys out. With the apples, we want to get a little bit of color on them. More importantly, we're looking for them to become soft. All right, so after we sweat these onions for 3-4 minutes or so, they're starting to get really tender. All right, we're going to add in our ground cinnamon and our brown sugar. All right, so this is the point here that we're really trying to get this to caramelize. All right, we're going to mix throughout the apples. Really starting to smell like fall. All right, and this is going to start to caramelize and create a natural caramel right up against the actual apples, and that will really come to life when we start adding in the vinegar, emulsifying the butter, and wrapping up with our bourbon. All right, now that the sugar and the cinnamon have started to caramelize on top of the apples, it's time to deglaze a little bit with our apple cider vinegar and our butter. All right, so vinegar is going to go in, as is our butter. All right, so at this point, we want to whisk very generously and vigorously, melt that butter down, and then simultaneously, you're going to see the pot's got a little bit of liquid in it. All right, we're going to reduce this down so that we're really going to start to take on the embodiment of a relish. All right, we want to cook about 80 to 85% of this liquid out of the actual apples. All right, the very last step that we are going to do is we're going to take our bourbon. All right, much like the vodka, we're not going to keep this in the kitchens, okay? We're going to drop it in there. All right, we're going to just let that burn off for about another 5 minutes. All right, re-loosened up our reduction that started. You're going to see a boiling reaction in the actual pot. All right, that's all good. That's the alcohol shocking everything, and also the colder temperature for how hot this is. Also, from a safety perspective, we do have a live caramel here, so this is insanely hot. All right, so everybody be careful when you're doing your mixing. All right, we're going to let this cook off for about another 5 minutes, and then we're going to store this on a sheet tray and let it cool down. And all of the loose activity that's going on is going to completely tighten up, and that will be the garnish for our apple pie panna cotta. All right, so after the 5 minutes of the bourbon reducing, you can see the caramel dripping off. All right, that's exactly what we were looking for. This is the point that we should be at. All right, again, we're going to wind up taking this and throwing it on a sheet tray, cooling in the walk-in, and you'll see in about an hour to two, everything's going to be completely tight.